Y'all probably have gotten used to our COVID-19 lifestyle by now, and to help make light of our current ordeal and get through a few more months of it, probably a lot more for those of us living in the US, I thought I'd offer a retelling of my reaction to the first few weeks of COVID. To give you a little more background, I'm an upperclassman working to complete my degree in engineering. You could say that I'm paying my way through college with tears in any sleep I once had, but I can't really complain since I willingly chose my major. Most of my classes involved labs of one kind or another. In fact, I had 4 different labs at the time COVID started, so meeting in groups for long hours in close proximity with dozens of people was a pretty normal thing. Unfortunately, just like the rest of the country, we weren't all that prepared for what was about to come. At the time, I was living in the dorms, and we got a fairly easygoing email suggesting that we wash our hands and stay inside for a few days. Classes were still going on, so it wasn't really possible to follow the letter of the email, assuming you read it in the first place. A few more days passed, and we were sent a second email stating that classes were officially shut down for the next few days in precaution, and we were to pick things up at the beginning of the next week. Funny thing was, no one exactly stayed in place and instead used the time to party and drink with all the other people who were let out of classes. Just like a zombie outbreak in the movies, nothing was really taken seriously. That's probably the first major flag if you're keeping score. By the end of this mini break from class, things resumed for about 3 days before they were closed down again, and there was talk of classes being picked up online. Assuming things were going to be shut down for good this time, I made the executive decision to pack up my things and go back home rather than sticking around everyone in the dorms, making jokes about how drinking alcohol would prevent the infection. More or less, once I got my bags through the threshold, I received an email from one of my professors. Let's call him Professor Jones. He'd probably whip me if I didn't mention the fact that he's a doctor. Turns out that he and a number of my other professors were going to continue holding classes in person, claiming that COVID wasn't going to be that much of a problem. More out of laziness rather than cooperation with the shutdown order, I shot back an email to my professor asking if I could stay home and write my lab reports using photos provided by my groupmates who had yet to leave the school campus. I was ready to more or less throw them under the bus just so I wouldn't have to go all the way back. But to be fair, I carried the group up until this point, and I could still answer any questions they had about the lab from my computer. This is where being cool with the professor worked to my advantage. I ended up getting similar responses from the rest of my professors, so I was free to stay home as long as I updated my groupmates on how I'd only be able to help with labs via my computer. About a week later, these defiant in-person classes were forcibly stopped, and we were all sent back to our homes in a mass exodus from campus. Things picked up a week later, but I can't say the labs were the same as before. Everything was a pale comparison to its former self, as the professors failed to cope with the new online platform. But on the brighter side of things, I was able to attend all my classes in PJs while taking naps between lectures. Here's the weird part about all of this. Professor Jones, along with a few of my other professors, were the living definition of the people most at risk from dying from COVID. I mean, come on. Professor Jones was brought out of retirement just to teach a few more classes while the school looked for more full-time professors. The man is probably old enough to have fought Nazis just like Harrison Ford did in that one movie, Blade Runner. I already have a few ideas for the next video I'll be making, but I haven't started working on it yet. So if you have anything you would like to hear about first, you can write the ideas down in the comments below. Oh, and while you're down there, you can also tell me about a better way to end a video.